I am Rebecca from ChemKnits, and welcome to the 100th episode of Dyepot Weekly. Today we are going to dye some self-striping yarn using some more traditional techniques than what we've done in the past. We are going to make a really big skein of yarn and then dye it so that way we get a regular striping pattern on our sock yarn. Normally, when I'm winding yarn around the niddy noddy, I will make a 4-foot skein. So I'll have the center bar be 1 foot, and when you wind the yarn around, you end up with something 4 times as long. Today, the PVC pipe niddy noddy that I'm using is 3 feet long, which means we are going to have a 12-foot skein. I do have a skein winder upstairs, but it cannot make a skein that is 12 feet around. So that's why I will be winding it by hand, and then we'll take a look at our massive skein. Now, if you don't have access to a long niddy noddy or some PVC pipe to make your own, if you want to learn more about this DIY niddy noddy, I'll have a link in the video description. But you can certainly wind your yarn around chairs, a table, anything you can really think of to make as long of a skein as you possibly can. So I'm now gonna try to wind the yarn around this. The yarn that we're gonna use today is Knit Picks Stroll Fingering Weight yarn. This is a favorite and one that I use a lot on the channel. It is just a wonderful sock yarn that is 75% superwash merino, 25% nylon. All right, I'm gonna insert one of the ends of the yarn sort of inside this frame, so that way I can just secure it, and then I am going to start winding around it. This is a little awkward right now because I'm just trying to film it as I'm doing it, but I feel like that I would be able to get a pretty good rhythm down while watching some YouTube videos to create this really long skein in not too much time. It's a little hard on the wrist, but I think that sitting down I should be able to twist this and get some more of my winding rhythm. But just so you guys can see where we are now, we're working nicely on our 12-foot skein. Man, time-wise, this actually didn't take as long as maybe I thought it would. Certainly it was like under an hour to wind this, but the strain on the arm, it was a bit of a workout, so I think it could be a little hard to do a lot more than like one at a time. It always amuses me a bit when one of my videos is a lot more about the fiber prep at the beginning than the actual dyeing. I have a pretty simple plan for the dyeing. I am going to do some immersion dyeing in 2 different colors to make the 2 different colored stripes for this yarn. The yarn is off the niddy noddy and it is huge. I think, yep, it is taller than me if I have one end on the ground. Clearly, I'm going to need to add some extra ties to this so we don't end up making a super tangled mess. I think that this is by far the biggest skein that I've ever worked with. With these extra ties, I'm going through a little bit of effort to do loose butterfly type ties, just so that way they don't slide around the yarn as easily, because I really don't want to tangle this beautiful skein. As another point of reference, when we compare our folded over large skein to the original skein of Knit Picks Stroll, we have increased the length by about 3-fold. After playing around with a lot of Dharma acid dye colors that I hadn't used before, I decided to go with the 2 colors Deep Purple and Frozen for my self-striping yarn. The Deep Purple is a reddish deep purple, and the Frozen is a little bit of an electric kind of blue. I mixed some 1% stock solutions of each of these colors, And now we can dye our self-striping yarn. It ended up being about 5.1 grams of color, and then I dissolved it into 500 milliliters of liquid to get the 1% solution. In this steam pan, I have 16 cups of water, and I am now going to add 1/4 cup of our 1% stock solution in the color Frozen. This color is a bright, rich blue, and I am carefully, so I don't make a lot of scraping sounds, stirring it up in our pan. It doesn't need to be 100% stirred. The water is still cool at the moment, so I am going to start heating it up. And now I want to, goodness, I think I'm going to add 2 tablespoons of white vinegar. Whoa, did you see that? Where I added the vinegar, it looked like it got more turquoise. That was actually really, really cool. That seemed to shift the color of it a little bit. Maybe it's just me, but that looked really, really cool. Now I want to add half of my yarn. Okay, off camera, I am taking my yarn and sort of dividing the skein roughly in half. And I'm putting half of it in this pot right next to me, and I'm adding about half of it to our pan. And I am wiggling it a bit so that way it can have access to this color. Now, we're not going to get a solid, we're going to get sort of a semi-solid tonal, but the more I sort of get these fibers to spread out, the more even the color will be. But I am excited for there to be some tonality, I guess, to it. But now I just sort of need to let it heat up and absorb that color. And then, you know, once that is done, we can go ahead and dye the other end. Now, if I ever got happy with the level of color saturation we saw, I could remove the yarn sooner, but I think I want, you know, looking at it, I think I want the rest of that color to absorb. And I do sort of want to shimmy the center point too. Make sure that gets some good access. But one of the reasons why I sort of have this pot here is just to hold the other half of the skein. I am going to keep an eye on the heat. I have the heat on high now, but I am actually going to reduce it. I want it to heat slowly, and I don't want any yarn against the edge to burn. I haven't quite done this before, so that's why I'm being a little bit cautious. But yeah, I am excited. So I'm going to let this sit for 10 minutes and then we'll come check on it. It's been 10 minutes. I did cheat and move it around a tiny bit. A lot of the color has cleared, but there is definitely a little bit left, and we have not yet hit a simmer. So I'm sort of, and see if I put a tiny bit more of the yarn in, you can see that the color there is really, really pale. I am going to sort of move this around. Uh-oh. Don't want to mess up the integrity, move this around, but even, you know, in the last minute, things have cleared a lot. So I'm going to let this go for 10 more minutes. We'll see if we heat up a bit more and absorb some of that final color. Alright, 10 minutes later, and it looks like a lot of the color has cleared. I'm trying to, oh yeah, that's cleared. There's a hint of blue, I think, around the edge, so I will take a paper towel around to clean it off a bit. But I've got a beautiful, beautiful, rich blue color, but I do see some dimension in there that excites me. Taking just a paper towel on my tongs to scrub the edge. Looks like there's like a little bit of a blue rim here, but actually, oh yeah, I am getting some color off on here. So I'm just going to continue that, and then we'll dye the other side. Now we are going for the deep purple. And I wanted this blue to feel bright, and I want this purple to sort of feel dark. I want it to live up to its name and be a really, really deep color. So we're going to start with half a cup. Wow, look at that color. It's funny, the solution looks brown, but when it hits the water, it is more intense. I actually thought I was going to do just half a cup, but I'm going to go ahead and add another quarter cup for it. I'm just going for it. I sort of want this to be like a navy of purples. And at least that is my hope. We'll see how it turns out. I'm going to stir this up. Then the heat is off at the moment, and you can see that we are in a deep purple color. Okay. And carefully now, because I don't want to like burn myself or anything, we are going to now add the other color of our self-striping yarn into our dye bath. And I'm going to grab my tongs. Ooh, so just even right now, it feels eggplanty, but ooh, there is just so much color left in there, you know, and I'm making sure to like swizzle it around at this edge, and ooh. So it's funny because like if I were to take this out right now, it'd be like, ooh, a deep purple and a bright blue. I'm really hoping that the purple intensifies at least a little bit. I mean, I'm expecting it to because there's a ton of color in there. I'm going to turn the heat back on. Got it on like medium to low. And yeah, we're going to wait. But let's see with our spoon. Like I can't tell if we have like, if we're like starting to clear it all yet. I have no idea how much more intense this will get, but you know, you can see there's a tiny bit of overlap because I don't want it to be pale at the overlap, and I do want to spread that. But, oof, all right, I'll come back in 10 minutes and we'll see what's happening. With 30 seconds on the clock, I just started stirring this off camera, and then I was like, oh, I should come in and show you. We are starting to clear, and this is my purple. It is a deep eggplant color. This is the color of like my wedding. Oh, I'm now moving it around. I'm sure there's probably some different depths of tone. We do want the rest to absorb. Let me sneak in a tiny bit more. Yeah, ooh, that's hot. I'm sneaking in a tiny bit more because, you know, the overlap isn't going to be super sharp. I want to make sure there's not like white. I don't mind if there's a tiny bit of a transition between the two colors. I know that this color combination might not be for everyone, but I love pairing, you know, a bright color with a black or navy, and I really wanted to play around with it using a deep purple as our dark neutral shade. So I am really excited. I am gonna let this go. Again, we're on medium-low heat, another 10 minutes to see if that's enough for the water to clear. I might come and move it periodically, but oof, I am so happy with how saturated this color is. Beyond happy. We are so close to clearing. Let's see. Oh, so close. Like, I almost feel like if I were to dip the whole blue end in, that we would soak that up straight away. I'm like, it's funny, the skein is so long, it's hard to just like move it through. So we see our transition, a little bit of like a blurple color. If I go in a little further with the blue, I'm not detecting like any hue changes from that, which is nice, but I do want the water to clear because that'll make our rinsing easier later. All right, I'm gonna turn off the heat and I'm gonna leave the yarn in here for a while to cool off. See if we absorb any more of that color. I mean, it's basically clear. Cooling off, our water has cleared and we're getting close to room temperature, so we're about ready to wash it. In a brief first look from walking over here, I can say that the purple section is a bit larger than our blue section. But you know what? That's okay. We definitely have a beautiful self-striping yarn here. And looking at this rinse, I'm not seeing any bleeding. So, woohoo! I love how saturated this purple is. I think the blue just really pops. I'm now going to use a little bit of clear dish soap just to see now if we're going to see any bleeding. And yeah, it looks like we're seeing a little bit of bleeding. So it's something that you want to keep in mind with really saturated colors. With any acid dye, you can, with heat, disrupt the bonds between the dye and the fiber and get bleeding. So you do want to wash things in cool water, and with the really saturated colors, you do want to take care to wash them on their own and keep an eye on the bleeding. So, for example, I wouldn't want to let this soak in water unless I was sure that bleeding wasn't happening. But we've got a little bit of lukewarm water here now because it's cold and I don't want my hands in the cold. And I'm not seeing any more bleeding. It's possible if we soak for a bit we might see some, but I am really happy with how this has come out. And I'm going to rinse it a couple more times and hang it up to dry. And we'll come back and look at the whole skein. You guys, I just threw this self-striping skein around my neck to come downstairs to film the next step of the video. But it looks so cute that I had to pop in front of the camera to show you it in all of its glory. One other really interesting thing that I found is now if I have one end just touch the floor, it isn't quite taller than me. The length actually did shrink a bit from dyeing. Now granted, you know, it could be stretched and sort of blocked back out to the other length, but this is the first time I can conclusively say that some of the length did change because I had measured it against my body earlier. Nevertheless, we still have a huge skein of our self-striping yarn. Unfortunately, in this state, it isn't really that usable or easy to work with because we still are risking really big tangles, and this skein is just way too big to fit on a Swift. I've tried to line this up as best as I can so the yarn can fit on camera, and you can see that the purple portion is slightly longer than the blue. I'm not sure if this would, I mean, I really doubt this would make a huge difference in the size of the stripes because it's only a couple inches of difference. But for just sort of ballparking it, we did a really good job at keeping these colors really even with our stripes. I tried to keep my butterfly ties loose, but there are definitely some lighter sections from where some of these ties existed. Either way, this is a fun, unique, hand-dyed, self-striping yarn, and I am really, really excited to go and swatch this. Yes, I am going to swatch this. We are going to get a rare swatch at the end of a ChemKnits video. But before I swatch it, I do need to reskein it because I don't want to end up creating a horrible tangled mess. To reskein this yarn, I have wrapped it around the back of 2 chairs, and I'm going to do it by hand onto a 1-foot niddy noddy. Winding the yarn onto the niddy noddy did not take very long at all. But before I go and make the swatch and do all the final conclusions, there's one other thing I wanted to show off. The acrylic ties that we used actually picked up a tiny amount of color. Now, the amount of color on the acrylic compared to the color in the yarn is very, very low, but it did take some staining. I have not done any real experiments with acid dyes and acrylic specifically, but I just felt like it was worth pointing out that we did observe some staining on it. Not that I recommend using acid dyes on acrylic yarns, but it was still worth pointing out. The skein is just so beautiful. I know I've talked about reskeining before, but this is a time where it's, I think, worth pointing it out again. When you look at the skein, it's hard to immediately know if we have a self-striping yarn or just a variegated yarn that maybe has some long sections of color. So that's why I personally prefer to leave yarn as it was dyed in the skein, because it helps, I think you can open it up and get a better sense of what the yarn looked like before. Here is a swatch that I knit on size 2 knitting needles with about 35 stitches across. And you can see we got some beautiful, beautiful stripes that are about 4 rows wide. Now, if you're doing socks, depending on your gauge, the stripes would be a lot thinner. And my guess would be each stripe would probably be about 2 rows wide on the socks. This is one reason why it is really important to take swatches or anything with a grain of salt, because the gauge that you knit, the size needles that you use, the number of stitches you use, whether you're knitting back and forth or in the round, can alter the way that the pattern comes out. So maybe if we were going to be doing a hat, it really wouldn't be self-striping at all. So that's just something to keep in mind. I am Rebecca from ChemKnits, and thank you so much for watching this 100th episode of Dyepot Weekly. I hope that you found this tutorial fun and that you've been enjoying the series, because I know that I am really excited to see what kinds of beautiful colors we create after 100 more episodes. Make sure that you are subscribed to the ChemKnits Tutorials YouTube channel, and if you want to make sure that you never miss a new video, tap that little bell icon, and so that will turn on notifications, and then you'll get notified every time that I release a new video or plan a live stream, because we have a ton of fun over here. If you're a huge fan of ChemKnits and want to support us on a more personal level, you should check out the ChemKnits Patreon. Patreon is a platform that connects fans with the content creators that they enjoy, and in exchange for your monthly support, you can get some really cool perks, like early access to new yarn dyeing videos, behind the scenes sneak peeks, and more. It's so much fun, and I really appreciate all of the input from the ChemKnits patrons. Finally, if a monthly subscription isn't really your thing, you can actually buy yarn that has been featured in past or upcoming ChemKnits Tutorials YouTube videos. I have a shop, ChemKnits Creations, that is filled with tons of yarn that I've dyed in these videos and live streams, and you should really go check it out. There's also some really cool ChemKnits swag if you want to show your love for ChemKnits but don't really need any more yarn. You can find links to all of this in the video description and iCard. Finally, thank you so much for all of your support. Your engagement and comments and questions really do help fuel my creativity, and I love being able to create these videos so much. It seems like we've come such a far way since I first kickstarted this series, and I am just so excited to keep it going and see where we end up next. I know that in these past 100 videos, well, more than 100 videos because there have been bonus ones along the way. I have grown as a dyer, as a fiber artist, and hopefully you're growing along with me at home. So thank you so much for being part of the ChemKnits community. Thank you so much for watching, everyone.